got the information that I was having difficulty finding a moment ago. Welcome back to anybody that's actually watching this. And incidentally, I'm not essentially worried about whether or not these videos are being watched a whole lot. This is just something that I'm doing to, as I've said before, provide a certain structure, something to get up and do. Okay, so first of all, I was interested in what the penalty might be for the violation of this new statewide stay-at-home order. So what it says at the very end of the proclamation is violators of this order may be subject to criminal penalties, criminal penalties pursuant to RCW 43.06.2205. So what exactly does that mean? It doesn't, within the verbiage of the proclamation, it doesn't say. So a search online of RCW.43.06.220 is available online. Okay, state of emergency, powers of governor pursuant to proclamation, and then there's several pages of information. But here in the stay-at-home order, it says violators of this order may be subject to criminal penalties pursuant to RCW 43.06.220, and then in parentheses the number 5. Okay, so number 5, any person willfully violating any provisions of an order issued by the governor under this section is guilty of a gross misdemeanor. It's the first time I've come across the term gross misdemeanor. So what is a gross misdemeanor? In the state of Washington, a gross misdemeanor is any crime that is not classified as a plain misdemeanor or a felony in the state of Washington. The maximum punishment for a gross misdemeanor is 364 days in county jail and or a fine of up to $5,000. So wherever it was that I read that a person who is found to be in violation of this new order could be fined a maximum of $500, that I don't remember where I read it. I know I read it someplace, but that is not an assertion that is supported by the verbiage of the law or of the stay-at-home order. Here are some examples listed online of gross misdemeanors in the state of Washington: violating certain provisions in a domestic violence protective order, stalking that doesn't involve circumstances making it a felony, such as stalking that violates a protective order, theft of property worth no more than $750, and theft of subscription TV services. These are examples of gross misdemeanors. And apparently these are the same provisions under which a person may be subject to penalty if they are found to be in violation of Governor Inslee's stay at home, stay safe order. And yeah, going back a little more deeply into the verbiage of the order, all people in Washington state shall immediately cease leaving their home or place of residence except 1, to conduct or participate in essential activities, and or 2, for employment in essential business services. This prohibition shall remain in effect until midnight on April 6th, 2020, unless extended beyond that date. There it is. And that's where I'm going to leave that for now. I referenced a couple days ago something called the CARES Act, which I think was the Senate Bill 3548, and I can pull those papers back up if I need to, but that was the legislation that would have provided for tax rebates in the form of payments directly to each citizen of $1,200, $2,400 for married couples, $500 per child in a family situation. And that bill has been continually blocked within the Senate because the Democrats in Congress want to load this legislation full of a bunch of ideological goodies, such as, I understand, Speaker Pelosi in the House of Representatives essentially wants the president to come forth and endorse the Affordable Care Act. I understand that reintroducing cellular phones underwritten by the federal government is something she wants to put in there. Some sort of diversity mandates. Um, I'm going to find exactly, if I can, a very concise listing of exactly the type of things that the Democratic Party in the Senate wants to add to whatever legislation is being passed to provide financial relief to American citizens. This is not the time for that kind of thing. It really isn't. It's infuriating. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that anyone on either side of the aisle would want to use this situation as a way to advance ideological minutia, and that they are going to hold this legislation and this financial relief hostage in order to advance any ideological agenda. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's infuriating, and it needs to stop. This is not the time for this. This is not the time for these ridiculous, petty squabbles. So I'm probably going to come back on a little later today with a list of examples of things that certain politicians in Washington are demanding before they will allow for passage of the desperately needed financial aid. Things that have absolutely nothing to do with keeping the American people safe and healthy during this crazy pandemic. And I still think that this is all an enormous overreaction. And as much as I just said, I can't believe the political angle which is being pushed, I think that an enormous motivation behind the reaction to it that we're seeing is purely political. So I'm going to come back on probably later with more to say about that. So, all right. Until then, be good to each other.